Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster. All right, welcome back. This is East Coast Adventures with the Dirt and Vert podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And we have a guest today with us that is a repeat top performer at Mid-State Mile. So, we had Eric on the previous podcast, and we wanted to bring Darren on this week, who finished with the assist at Mid-State Mile. And one of the things we were just talking about with the last two finishers for Mid-State Mile is the last two people that have gotten the assist have gone on the following year to win it. So, Darren's got a lot of pressure on him next year to show up. But Darren, thank you so much for being on the podcast. But if you don't care, man, tell us a little bit about your story. Over the last year, you've obviously made a huge transition in your life. We can see just the fitness level that has changed and your drive. And obviously that's showing in some of your results, just like Mid-State Mile. So if you don't care, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into running.
For sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Dave, Matt, for having me on. Appreciate you guys and you guys taking the time to listen to me talk for a bit. So, my running journey, I ran cross country as a kid. In high school, ran a little bit track, but not much. And then in high school, when I was 17, I decided I was going to run a marathon. Nobody runs marathons in my circle. And so I signed up for it in January. It was a May marathon, and I started training in about April for a couple days. And I went out fast. And so I ran my split at an hour and a half, and then the wheels completely fell off. And then I walked across the finish line. My goal was to I don't even know if I had proper goals, but I felt like walking was a failure at that point. I didn't know that. We're allowed to walk in things. So anyways, I walked a bunch. An old guy picked me up at the end. He was like, run it in. So for the last, I don't know, half a mile or something, I ran it in. Had to take drugs, muscle relaxants, could not walk, and I did not run for a very long time after that. and so I had this marathon experience. And so I was 17. And I jogged here and there. I ran here and there. I was always a decent runner, never a great runner. So then probably I want to say around the time, David Goggins started getting a little popular. Jesse Itzer kind of put him on the map a little bit with his living with a seal and hearing about 100 milers. And I was like, and it kind of piqued my interest, maybe 2016, 2017, something like that. So it had been a while. I hadn't run really, here and there, like you start running 5 kilometers 10 times and then you quit, sort of thing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, I will say this, I was a police officer and I was a firefighter. So I maintained physical fitness. So I was always fairly fit, just didn't run a whole lot, just would kind of pick it up here and there. And so I had this idea. I was like, I want to run 100. I'm Canadian. I'm like, kilometers is better than miles for sure when it comes to putting down. I was like, I wanted to run 100 kilometers. So that was the goal. And so I entered this one, I believe it was 2019. It was it's a qualifier for Boston, but it's a 2.2 kilometer loop called That Damn Hill in London, Ontario, where I'm from. And so they have a 5K, they had a half, they had a marathon, they had a 12-hour, they had a 24-hour. So I signed up for the 24-hour. I was like, I want to do 100K. And I absolutely went out way too fast again. It's kind of a theme that I had. And the wheels always fall off at some point. We all know that. Yep. And so I ended up finishing 100 kilometers on an all asphalt 2.2 kilometer loop. It was like me and my best friend did it. We did it together, and it was about 19 hours that we did it in, and it was so ugly. It was one of the ugliest things I've ever done. Oh, I should actually back up. Before that, I attempted to run like a 60K to like a buddy's cottage, and I hit my knee on a guardrail taking a pee, and And I was like, I could do it. And I only made it like 42 kilometers. My wife had to pick me up, like this giant, like this ride of shame, 20 kilometers to the cottage where I just nursed my wounds. And we talked about, like it was, you know, like I'm a pretty big baby when it comes to recovery. I let everyone know how far I went and how much it
That's
hurts,
right.
and that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was the
Yep.
point, right? Otherwise, so
I mean, you earned that.
Yep.
right. So I did that damn hill in 2019, did 100K, and then I had never done the 100 miler, and I'm like, I wanna do the 100 miler. So I went to, I might get some time is messed up here, but so I'll start with 2019. We did the 100K, and then COVID hit, and or I think that was right around COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We had to run with something. It was September, and we had to run with something, start with something on our face or something. So it was around that time.
Oh, well.
Yeah, for sure. And then I took a leave of absence from my job, and we bought a motorhome, and we decided we were going to tour Canada. Well, COVID was in full fling, and that got shut down traveling across Canada. We couldn't do it in the motorhome. So we ended up getting to the States, and we had seen Chad and Greg in 2020, correct? We had seen Chad and Greg battle it out on Instagram, and I was like, well, that's cool. And so it was like maybe April, and I messaged Becca, and I was like, can I get into this race? We're trying to figure out what to do with our lives right now, and that seems cool. I knew Chad was going to be there, followed him for a while previous to that. I heard him on Rich Roll kind of when he kicked off, so I was like, that'd be fun to go do a thing. So we came down to, you know, Franklin, and was like, we're going to run this thing. So before, I was like trying to figure out how to, that's a hill. Like my running was all asphalt growing up. Like it was all track and asphalt. I did almost nothing, you know. Cross country was kind of like on some grassy hills, but nothing even close. So I had no idea what I was in for. So I had run maybe hills like maybe 6 times. I'd run some like, you know, 120 to 150 foot repeats for like 30-40 minutes, right? Like nothing. So I showed up. We showed up to Midstate in the motorhome, parked it the Friday night, and we went and walked the hill. And my wife starts laughing, and she's like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like I was so scared. I was like, I don't know how. I don't know what's gonna happen. And sure enough, I ran whatever that was, 2021, and I went. I think I went 30 miles, about 9 hours, whatever that is. My buddy Mike, who I did the first 100K with, he had, when we left Canada, he had bought me poles because I had never run with sticks before, and it was like at that year was at the 8 hour mark. You could have you use your poles. So I had like 5 hours. I was like, I'm done. That's like 4, probably 3. I mean, I'm giving myself credit. Probably like 2.5 hours. I was done. Right? Like I'm like, I don't want to do this. And my wife's like, Mike bought you poles. Like you have to go to 8 hours. So I did everything I could to make it to 8 hours. And I'm like, okay, I'll have poles. I'll be good. And I made it like another hour. And I pulled the pit. I was like, that was awful. But then it opened my eyes to see all the amazing runners and to watch Chad and Luke battle and to be like, oh, there's levels to this. There's different levels to physical fitness and mental toughness that I had never really witnessed anything like that. And that was a pretty cool special year to see all the documentary being filmed, and that was fun. Yeah. And it just opened my eyes to, well, I guess we're more capable than I had previously thought, right? And this is a lot of the time when like Jocko's stuff is out and Goggins stuff is out and all that, right? Like it's all these like people doing incredible things. So so that kind of opened my eyes to that. I ran a lot that year, but I didn't. There's a lot of things personally that were up in the air as far as what we were doing for a job, what we're doing for a home, where we're living, all that stuff. So I hadn't really been able to put much on the calendar as far as races, and we were busy doing other stuff. So I ran short distances. I didn't do much long stuff for that next year. And then we left. We went to Nicaragua, and we spent some time there. We went back to Canada, and I still hadn't tackled the 100 miles. I still hadn't done it. And so I went back to that damn hill in September of, it would have been 22, I believe. And I ran that damn hill, signed up for 24 hours. I did not go out super fast, but I just, at 2.2 kilometers, the temptation when you walk by your chair in the night is to just have, just to sit down and have, it's just the temptation is so strong. And then to just sit a little bit too long. So I actually didn't run the 100 miles in 24 hours. I ran the 100 miles. When the race finished and I kept going, and I was like, I'm putting 100 miles on my watch. I don't care. So I actually didn't get 100 miles in 24 hours. So it's not on the race that I did it. I did my 100 miles, though. That was enough for me to be like, I checked that box, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then in that January, I signed up for Mid-State, not really knowing. So we still didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have our visa stuff for the US finalized yet. But I was like, if we can get in, I want to go run it. So a bunch of other stuff happened personally in those times. And I didn't do a lot of training, not a lot of running. And we ended up moving to just south of where the races were in Columbia. So we're an hour from the Mid-State Mile. And April rolls around, and my wife's like, "Are you gonna train and like hard?" Like I had done a lot of zone 2 that year. I'd done a lot of like 10Ks, zone 2, like for months. So my aerobic was good, but nothing with vert. And she's like, "Are you gonna learn your lesson? Are you gonna train?" So I right. And so I always like finding people who've gone before you, right? So I knew Justin. I saw he had won. Knew he was doing some coaching. I was like, bro, like, get me ready. I have 5 weeks. So that was last year. And he's like, okay, let's go. So, and he put together a plan, and really what it came down to is, I'm not, as far as like running coaching goes, like I know a little bit enough to be dangerous, kind of like a handyman electrician, right? Like I know enough to be dangerous for that stuff. So he's like, you run in vertical feet now. That's what he told me. That's the one thing I remember. He's like, collect your vert for the week. I don't care your mileage, just do your vert. And so I did more than my vert. I had 4 to 5 weeks of training, a week to taper. And I went out there last year, and we did. I got 112 miles last year. It was awesome. Yeah. I gave it everything that I had. And even looking back, you can always say, I probably could have done one more, right? Like every time I finished that race, I'm like, I could have hobbled one more. I just didn't want to at that point. And so, but I did, I was super proud of my effort. I was kind of, that's the race that kind of kickstarted a lot for me to be like, okay, I can run. I can't run necessarily that fast, but I have endurance and I have the mindset to stick with it. And a lot of what led up to this, I'd actually love to get into this. A lot of what led up to that race is my wife and I took a bunch of coaching courses on mindset and language. So I did hours and hours and hours of work on my inner dialogue of what I say to myself when I'm running and what I say out loud when people aren't around. So I talk a ton. I don't actually talk that much on the trail. I talk to you, Matt, a bunch. I don't talk a lot on the trail. I like to be pretty quiet when I'm running, but I talk a lot in my head, as most people do, and I talk a lot out loud when nobody's around. And so we'll get into what this year was, but I had certain phrases and words that I say over and over and over again. And when I hear other people say things that I know they're going to say, I do what I call translating. So if someone says, like, so whenever someone would say this year, like, it's so hot, in my head, I go, I thrive in the heat. Every time. If someone said, I'm dying out here, I'd say, I'm living. Every time. And so when you know these people are, so literally as people are struggling, you can literally take the energy that they're giving and like feed yourself off it. You can literally just feed yourself off of it. And if someone's giving great energy and they're saying they're like, this is fun, and you feed off of that, right? You just feed off, you figure out how to feed off energy and give other people energy. And when I'm struggling the most, I always go find someone to help, because that's the biggest thing. If you're struggling, if you navel gaze, you'll quit. And if you go be like, how do I get someone else another lap because I'm hurting. And so that, I mean, that was what I learned the most from last year was my inner dialogue is what I say to myself is one of, besides the training leading up, is one of the most important things that I have out there at my disposal. So this year was a great year. I mean, you can get into this year or wherever you guys want to go from there. I don't know if you have any questions. I know I just talked for like 20 minutes without.
No, I love it. I'm going to take you all the way back to that marathon. So you're 17. You sign up for a marathon. You run in an hour and a half for the half marathon, which is impressive in
Pretty
itself.
good. Yeah.
And it just reminds me of a comment someone told me that we had on this podcast once before. He posted one day, someone was asking about 100-mile advice, and he said, PR your 5K and walk it in. That was his advice to someone for 100 miles, and I'll never forget that. Like, that was just hilarious. But for me, like, that was probably like a very humbling experience for you. Did that force you to not run for a while, or did you kind of think when you finished, like, I can do this better, or did it just kind of like throw you off for a while?
Yeah, no, it crushed my spirit. I was just like, I was in so much pain, and I was like, I was too immature. It was kind of just, it was an ego thing. It was like, I ran a marathon. Like it wasn't what it was supposed to be for me. And like I believe everything happens for a reason. And so it's like everything that's led me to this point is because it was supposed to happen that way. But I just think it would have been an ego thing for me to be, to push and be a run and all these things. And back in like, that would have been, I don't know, date myself here. That's like 22, 23 years ago. Right. So back in that day, I had friends who did triathlons, and the dad was like, oh, you just wrecked your speed for the rest of your life. Like you shouldn't be running that long at that young of an age. Like I had people telling me all sorts, like now you look back, but I had people who were in sport who were like telling me like, you should never run that long if you want to maintain fast twitch and you want to be fast and you want to do, like I played basketball and volleyball and I love sport. Right. So it's just like, oh, maybe I shouldn't run long. Right. Like you just, what we know now, we didn't know then. Right. So no, it didn't do anything for me as far as I didn't get what I wanted to out of it. It didn't make me feel, it was humbling was a great word, because the guy who helped me was probably in his 60s, late 50s, 60s, who's run, he had probably, I forget what he told me, 40, 50 marathons, right? He's just out there plugging away, doing his thing, right? And that's what he does. He goes and I'm sure helps people along the way who need help, right? So and it's funny, right? I sprinted in, like I definitely beat him. Like I didn't beat him, but I definitely crossed the finish. Like when dick move, right? Like, but like you're sprinting it in, and it's like you just walked for the last hour. You just walked the last hour. You're gonna sprint on the track in, like, come on.
That sounds like Matt and Brittany at Firewater.
Oh yeah, that's what I did to her. Yeah.
No, and that's why I wanted to ask. Like, I didn't know if that would kind of push you off a little bit, because some people have a really bad experience and they just like throw it out of their life for a while, and then something brings them back. But it doesn't sound like you did that. You just didn't sign up for a while for something else. But
and I threw in a couple. There's a couple half marathons probably in my 20s that, again, humble. That was just like, I don't know. It's Canada. It's cold. It's rainy. I'm on the asphalt. Like. It was all road running. I never knew trail running existed. I was never really aware of it, other than running in the woods with my friends every once in a while. But racing in events and getting together with people. So like running on asphalt, just looking at my watch, it didn't really appeal to me, right? So it wasn't until having these big, like, I'll run 100 miles on asphalt because that's super challenging. But it was kind of boring, I guess, for me, and it didn't fulfill me. Now I do have, it's funny, like full circle, I got now marathon goals, right? Like I'm like, I think I'd like to revisit that when my qualifying time for Boston's a little bit easier. Right? So.
Well, and that's the beauty of it, is like, if you switch over to trails and like you just see the beauty, and you're kind of at peace, and it's very, it's just very tranquil and in the woods, and like it just brings you kind of a peace, and it's scenic and it's beautiful and it's awesome. You're in nature, but that's also one of the reasons that like people really get hooked is because of the trail. But eventually, just like you, just like me, anybody else, like it eventually makes you want to get better, and that may include at some point coming back to the road,
Yeah.
And I do a lot of my training through the week on the road. But man, when I get a chance to run on the trail on the weekends, I absolutely love it. And that kind of is my drive to do those long runs in the woods.
It definitely is better.
And you just meet some really cool people on a trail. Let's be honest. Like there's no telling who you'll see out on a trail.
Well, and also when you're running, like even in races, like I ran Georgia Jewel last year, and it's like I wasn't there to win, so there's a couple beauty views that I stopped and took them in. Like never in a race on the road am I going to stop and enjoy the beauty, right?
Yeah, we ran together.
Georgia Jewel with you?
Yep, he did. Me and him ran together. What, the first mile, 2 miles?
Yeah, down whatever the hill is.
Yeah, we ran together for a little while, and then he got me on the top of climbing up to that tower up there, that gravel tower. He was going. I didn't see him again.
Well, if you finish that 100, you're in pretty good shape, because that's not an easy 100 to finish.
No, the descent's definitely. That was a great. I mean, every race is so it's so good for learning, because I just my descents. That's what I mean for anyone listening. If you want to run mid-state, run downhills. If you have the choice between running up a hill or down a hill, run down the hill, because that's what's going to hurt the most when it comes down to it. And so, just my descending ability was terrible. That's what slowed me way down at Georgia Jewel. So I was like, okay, like that's what I'm working on then for mid-state. Like it just points out your weak spots, and that's. So there's just benefit to every race to get better. Yeah. And it's not to be like, I'm by no means an elite runner, but it's just like, for me, it's enough. It's enough to just want to get better, to improve on my last effort at whatever races I choose to do, to repeat, right?
Yeah. Good advice. The rock garden is what slows me down at Georgia Jewel. I'm usually laying on it somewhere. I do good till I get to that point, and then I just fall everywhere.
I don't know. You fell on the other parts that wasn't the rock garden, and I ran with you.
True.
It was pretty smooth in those sections.
I was like, I've never kicked so many rocks.
Yeah.
Well, it's such a fun course too, though. Like I love that out and back. I'm not a fan of the loops when you get back there, because it's just kind of like life sucking, when you're like in those loops. But man, the feeling of doing that last loop and getting to run back, it's like, okay, this race is almost done. That's kind of what you feel like. You're like, I am headed back, and it's
how many miles was those loops?
I think they're about 7 apiece, kind of like one's 7,
I think the total is almost 20 miles. I think you run 4 loops.
Oh, so it's less than 7. Okay.
No, it should be about 7. One's 7, one's less.
You get to there at like 36 or 38, right? Something like that.
Yep. And then you head back at 50, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, 38, 34. Yeah, I'm asking.
I think.
You're right. Somewhere between 21 and 26 or something like that. Total.
Yeah, I think you get there close to 40 miles, and then by the time you start back, it's at 60 something. So you're running 20-ish miles back there. And it's so like you do those first 2 sections, and then you start over, and you're like, and then when you finally get to head back across that creek and start that journey, it's like the best feeling ever, because that part of the trail is so fun. The loops, not.
I could actually run the loops.
Yeah,
I couldn't run all them uphills and downhills, but I could run the loops.
I was lucky enough. I missed coming down off what's the last lookout coming down, and you come down
John's
that
Mountain.
road. Yeah, John's Mountain. I missed the turn off John's Mountain back onto the trail, and I ran all the way down out to the road. And And then I ran and found a trail, and it was said the Pinhoti, like the bird's feet, and I was like, I ran down that for a bit, and I found 2 other guys that missed it, and we were all lost together, and then we hoofed it back up and got back on the trail, and then I ran ahead for a bit, and then I ended up, this guy's Brandon Perry was his name, and I ended up meeting him on the loops. Neither of us had pacers, and we just pulled each other. It was that's what I love about the community. We just pulled each other along. He was way stronger descender than me, so he would go get out ahead and kind of on the way back, and I'd catch up. But those loops at night was just like you didn't have the ability to sit in the chair long because one of us would be like, "Hey, Kate, we're going," and we just pull each other along. So it's just so fun to find people on the trail that, you know, my time. I don't know what my time was. It was 27, 29, something like that, right? It would have been well into 30 hours.
41.
There you go. But it would have been well into 30 hours, I'm sure, if I had not have found Brandon, because we just back and right, like highs and lows. So it's like, I'm good, he's terrible. He told me to stop talking. He told me to stop talking at one point. I was like, "You're good, Leslie." He's like, "Stop."
And I'll tell you, man, you meet some lifelong friends like that. I was on 100 and met a guy at like mile 40, and his name was Casey George. And me and him have been friends ever since. We meet and run a couple races together every year. He did Blood Rock with me. 1 year he's going to go to Bops this year for the Backyard Ultra. He's running it, but it's kind of cool, the people that you end up being with and how that actually turns into, and I almost feel like it turns into such a good friendship because you truly are living a full life out there in like 25, 30 hours, and like you're going through all this together.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you kind of bond, even if you would have never have talked to this person ever in your life, like all of a sudden, like that is like your lifelong friend now.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of cool how that happens. It really is.
Yep.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, people ask me about it, and in mid-state, especially because you get to run with people for so long.
Yeah.
And it's shared suffering. Like that's why military people, gravitate towards this stuff. And like you share in suffering with people, and you are no doubt bonded to them. Like whether you're from the totally different walks of life, like it doesn't matter your, religion, politics, all that stuff. It's like, no, you've suffered together for an enduring amount of time. You've endured long enough together that you're connected in some fashion, right? So it's super cool.
Out there embracing the suck together.
Heck yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about mid-state this year now. So, you come your first year, you don't get 30 miles, quite 30 miles. You met the real downhill at mid-state mile. And then the following year you come back and you hit 112 miles. And then this year you end up finishing with the assist. Almost. I mean, you're right there. You finished second overall. What did you think helped you this year with like being ready to, push yourself into that point? Because I will say, for anybody that wasn't aware of like mid-state this year, it was by far the hottest it has ever been. So there was not going to be any PR set for like breaking a course record, because people were just hanging on for dear life because it was so hot. At one point, and I know this because I wasn't running, so I had plenty of time to look other stuff up between loops. But at one point, the heat index, I think it was 108 at like 2:30.
Jeez.
That was the hottest. So it was 108. And that's just insane to even think about.
Oh yeah, so we had a fan. We had a 500 CFM fan going, and
we heard it. Keep going.
Oh yeah, no, I was not apologizing to nobody. But at night the humidex. So I was trying to. So my wife, first of all, I'll just say this year, like a huge reason is my wife Christy. Was my crew. She was incredible. Like she killed it, and without her, there's no way I would have gotten even close to that. Like the training leading up, preparing for the race, getting everything I needed, and then actually staying up as long as I did. And yeah, like I need to acknowledge her because it was she did an unbelievable job. But the fan that I had, which like was amazing. At night we had my socks, so I had I was going through everything so fast because it's just so wet, and she had rinsed the socks, the salt off the socks, hung them out to dry, and she's like, they're getting wetter. I'm like, clip them to the fan. We had these clothespins. She clipped them to the fan, had the fan going. They got more wet as the night went on, as they're being blown by a giant fan. Like the Humidex was like, she's like, nothing will dry. Everything's getting wetter. Right? Like that, just to give people an idea of how humid it was. It was ridiculous. But to your question, so I decided I was going to go for Mid-State this year. So I put together a 17-week training block. So I was like, preparations, everything. If I could do what I did in 5 weeks last year, then I'm going to give myself more time. So I hadn't run a whole lot. I hadn't been super consistent this year after Georgia Jewel. I didn't have anything on the calendar. So I took a break from running later into the fall over the winter. And then 17 weeks out, I had it set and I started super slow, which is not my forte. And I just had same thing as last year. I had a build of vert collected per week. Jesse, it's just big on like weekly goals, right? Like if you have a daily train, like that's great, but life throws you curves. So like, what do you need by the end of the week? And so if on whatever your weekend is, if it's Saturday and that's the end, like if you got to get 6,000 feet because you haven't done it during the week, then that's what you got to do, right? So I was pretty good about scheduling it, but I just had my weekly vert goal. That was it. And I started running. I started at 7,000 feet a week, and I worked my way up to 22,000. And none of it on a treadmill. All of it, every foot I ran up, I ran down. Every single foot. And I just did some different terrain. A lot of it was on asphalt because we'll get into what happened, but like I wanted to strengthen my shins. I've had shin splints in the past and tiny little micro fractures that just have been an issue, but never a big issue. And I was like, okay, I'll run on some asphalt because that pounding over time, right? Like fighters, they strengthen their shins and strengthen their bones by. So I was like, I'll run on asphalt, most of it, a bunch of it on grass, a little bit on trail. But yeah, that's where most of my training took place, on 2 hills that I did. One is a 250-foot hill, and it's just under a mile, and another is 9/10 of a mile, and it's 220 feet. And so I ran 2 hills almost every day, just repeats. That's all I did. And it was and part of that's intentional with the boredom of it. It's just that's what Mid-State is. It's like it's a bit it can be a bit boring.
I sure can.
You can't listen to nothing. You just you either have to talk to the person beside you or listen to what's in your head, right? So the training was very intentional based on that. And yeah, so I literally and my training went from 7,000. So this was week 1. It was 7,000 week 1, 9,000 week 2, 11,000 week 3, 13,000 week 4, and then I went 14, 15, 16. I deloaded and ran a 10, and then I went 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I missed a week or two. I hurt my back. I had a bulging disc that I had to take care of, so I had to back off a bit, and then I got sick for a week and had to back off for that week. So I had 2 weeks that didn't go as planned. That I had to really be strategic around my training and just a lot of recovery, a bunch of chiropractic care, and trying to get those things sorted out. So those are kind of the two. Oh, and have you guys ever dealt with plantar fasciitis? That's a thing, eh? That's a thing.
I did.
Oh. So I developed that pretty early on, and I've never dealt with it before, and so that was just like, I mean, YouTube's great, and just rolling and stretching.
What did you do to fix that?
So every morning I didn't do a whole lot. Every morning for 2 minutes each foot, I have it's called a rubs, RUBZ. It's a little green ball that's kind of spiky, and I'd roll my foot out, and I'd really get into the arch where it was bothering me, and then I'd do some like I'd stretch my Achilles. I'd do some calf raises with my toe against a door frame. So like my big toe would be propped up against a door frame, and I'd do calf raises, and it never went away, but it became very minimal. So yeah, I really worked hard at so like in training, all these things, I had kind of 3 issues that came up. You work through, you got to work through them. Right. So that was,
let me tell you what I did to fix my plantar fasciitis.
Yeah.
You know when you get a cupper, like the cupping, like they do all the
Yeah.
back cupping and all that?
Yeah.
Take that cupper and put right in the middle of your arch. Turn that sucker all the way up, the heat all the way up, and do it every day. I did it for a week. Gone.
No way.
And I want to tell y'all how to help prevent plantar fasciitis. It's called yoga. Never had it.
You just cursed yourself. Hey, you better find some wood to knock on, because next time I see you, you're gonna say, "What was the name of that ball that you had?"
Yeah, so I mean, and you know, I've probably been close to getting it before, because it usually starts, you know, like in your calves, and then it works its way down.
Yeah.
And I've been, you know, there was at one point in 2022 where I quit doing yoga and strength training, and all I was doing was racing, which was terrible. And I had some hip issues, but I never got plantar fasciitis. My calves got really tight, like extremely tight. And by the end of that year, I got back into yoga, you know, right at the first of that year. But I was probably close to getting it then. But I'm just a huge believer in yoga. Like, it's when I put it back into my 2 to 3 day a week cycle, like my hip pain goes away, my calves go away, you know, all the stuff starts loosening up. And if I quit, it comes back. So, you know, there's something to it. It works for me. It may not work for everybody, but it's definitely my preventative routine.
And I do like a quick 5 to 7 minute mobility routine every morning. And I'm with you. Like however you get your mobility, like
Yes.
be strong and be mobile. Like that will prevent a ton of injuries.
I'm shocked that cold plunge didn't help you as much as you cold plunge. I would have thought that would have helped some of the PF.
Yeah, I haven't cold plunged as much as I should, because it's dirty. It's such a pain. I love cold
You were
plunge.
dedicated for a while.
For a while I was, and like I gotta change the water. I go in it after a workout, so it's sweaty. I don't like putting like chemicals in it, but I should. So like every 3 or 4 days, I gotta change the water, and then I fall behind, and then it goes a little green, and then I'm like, I gotta scrub it. Right? So we all play these games. So yeah, I did not use ice as nearly as much. When the injuries popped up, I definitely got in there. I was like, dang it. Dang it. Oh. Yeah.
Do you think moving to, so you moved to Columbia, Tennessee?
Yeah.
Do you think that also helped you? Because I do think that might have helped you be able to handle the Tennessee humidity.
Last year, definitely. Last year I trained in the heat. This year, all my training was like 5:30. So I didn't train a lot in the heat of the day. I was always done by 9:30. I maybe trained 2 afternoons, and that was just the schedule that I had that I could work with. I would have loved to get out of the heat.
Yeah.
I will say what helped me with the heat is like I went into the race this year. I was like, I felt super strong. I was like, I feel very good. And so I said to my wife and my kids, I was like, this is an eating, drinking, cooling competition. I got real hot last whatever it was, 2 years ago. Last year. I got real hot immediately. And I was like trying to wear long sleeves to try and shade and whatever. And my wife was like, you are not allowed to start the race without a shirt on. You can take it off after 1 lap, but I don't want to see you at the starting line without a shirt on. I was like, fair enough. So I threw a shirt on, 1 lap, took it off, and then so I didn't start cooling last year until I got hot, like really hot. It's like, we got to start cooling. From the first lap, I had ice on my back every lap. Every time I sat in the chair, I had ice on my back, ice in my groin, ice on my armpits, ice somewhere, ice in my hat, ice on my neck. I iced every single lap. So I got ahead of the heat, and then when it got real hot, day 2, I threw sleeves on, threw ice in my sleeves, and then I had that fan that was a lifesaver. Like, I did a great job cooling, if I do say so myself. I honestly, I was cooler this year than I was last year.
That's great.
Yeah.
It was definitely hotter this year. I could hear that.
100%.
I could hear that fan kick on.
Oh, it was loud.
When it would come on, I was like, when it first come on, I'm like, who the hell is that? Like, where's this?
Yeah.
Someone got a.
I got that.
I
I had a small one. I had a small one. I had a small misting fan that would like cover my face. And I looked at the weather, and that fan arrived off Amazon 2 days before the race. I was like, I got to do this is going to be ridiculous. And Luke was like a couple of seats down, and he looked at me he told me after, he's like, "Oh, I was looking at you with jealousy." He's like, I was pretty jealous of you because he was pretty hot.
That's awesome.
And I
So
mean,
what was your
I would
Go
say
ahead.
like we had a crew tent, like we had a tent, like advantages, right? Like there are advantages when you've run it before, and when like they offer, if you have 3 or 4 people that you can grab, if there's space and you ask quick enough, you can get your own tent. So we had enough, like nobody else would be allowed to, like there's not enough room. So I will acknowledge I had an advantage for sure.
Yeah.
Within the rules of whatever the race is, it's like we're allowed to be there. We're allowed to do this. Let's do it, right? And so I saw that Eric had a fan last year, and I was like, I need that. So full disclosure, full acknowledgement. Like there are definitely, if you want to go there to compete and try and win, take advantage of whatever opportunity you can that's offered.
Well, you look at it like towards the nighttime, you look out and the whole area where the seats were supposed to be was empty. There's nobody left that was in the seats. I think the guy that had the one stick, Cody, I think he had his own crew tent like down there in the yard area.
Yeah.
But everybody else that was left, you, Aaron, all of them up here, Eric, all had their crew tents where all their people was at. And it's like, those they knew because they've been here for 3 to 4 years. They knew that this is what you got to have. And then eventually, them people that are in the seats, they'll find a crew and they'll hook up with somebody if they keep coming back. But it was pretty neat to see that all of them stayed and the seat people were they got gone.
Yeah. I mean, you've learned your lesson, right? I mean, that's what I said. Every race, it's going to teach you something.
Well, also though, in most of their defenses, most of the people that are in that corral seating area, I mean, they're just there trying to get a PR of a 50K or they're not planning on staying for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
The people that show up with a tent and that are like crewing, I mean, that's who you know that is really there for the long haul. You know, there are a few random people that's going to be in the corral area that are in there for the long haul, you know, but they're far and few between. Most of the people in there are like, you know, I'm running for 3 hours and I'm done. You know, I heard that all day. Like, I just want to get to 6 hours. I just want to make it to the first intermission. You know, like they got their goals and that's cool. But you can definitely turn around and see your competition by who's. I mean, when you turn around and look and you see someone that's got a 36-inch fan over there blowing on his whole body, like this dude's here for the long haul, you know. And like you turn around and look at our tent, we got a 20-foot tent over here with 14 coolers and 12 chairs, and like we're probably there for the long haul. So
totally.
You know, and that's what's kind of cool about that race is like you learn and you adapt, and that's any last man standing. Like you have to be there, and you have to be there mentally and physically. And when I mean that mentally is like, if you're not in it and you're not prepared to run for 3 or 4 days, it doesn't take long for your spirits to break for you to just throw in the towel. And that's very hard for some people. You can be the fittest person out there, but that does not mean anything in this race.
Nope.
It means nothing.
Agreed.
And it's all it is one bad loop. That is one too long of a porta potty break, or, you know, anything can go wrong. A bad shoe change. I mean, it could be that you get back to the loop and your girlfriend or your boyfriend didn't have your drink ready. And that is enough to ruin the rest of the day for you. And like, if you're not prepared for that, it's not going to go well.
Oh yeah, you definitely got to prepare.
And learn to just be like, to be good to your crew in the sense that like, I was trying to keep my feet super dry. And then there was one point I just had a shoe change, and then, you know, ice came over the cooler, just dripped all, like just soaked my shoes. Right. And my wife was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I'm like, "It's fine. Like, it doesn't matter." Like, what's done is that like, there's no point to having an attitude of like, this is going to wreck anything, because it's done. It doesn't matter. it's obviously not intentional. Like everybody's trying their hardest. So it's like, you have to show up to these things. Any endurance thing like that, it's just like, you got to roll with it. You just have to roll with it and know that you can. I was pretty sad from 6 o'clock to 7 p.m. the first day. I don't know. I was fine. I just didn't want to be there. I was like, I know how long I have to keep going. I don't want to put in the early miles. I didn't want to. And it just lasted about an hour. And then I got like sad and emotional from like, we had the break, and then from like, I don't know, probably like 9:30 or 10 till like 3 a.m. My wife's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to get up. Like they were like, so she was gonna go sleep, and my crew that came to help out at night went and woke her up, and they're like, "I don't know if he's gonna keep going. He's being weird, right?" And I don't know what was up. And then I found the group, but I had hours and hours and hours of just like, I don't want to do another lap. Like just so many hours of it, and so just knowing that, like, that's what was different from last year, or from the first year to last year that I did it, was like learning that if you stick it out long enough, you feel better and it gets better. Like eventually, one of the things that I said to myself over and over again is, this feeling is not going to last. Both when it was good and when it was bad, but it's like this, it's not going to last forever. So just wait, it will get better.
Yeah. Absolutely. What was your lowest point in the race?
It would have been between that, like probably like 11, 12 at night, when I was like, I was counting, I was having trouble staying in the lap I was in. So I was counting how many times I had to do Myers until we might get to lose headlamps. And like, you just play all these, you just start doing math in your head. You're like, yeah, okay, if it gets bright at this time, then like, maybe, okay, then so I'm already like at the bottom of it. So I'll count this one. So I only have to do Myers 17 more times before the light. And like once the light comes out, I'm good. Like in the day, I'm fairly good. I struggle more at night. So yeah, at night, I was just like, my heart wasn't in it. I didn't want to do, right? Like anyone will tell you, a lot of these last man standings, like the race, that like, it sounds bad, or it sounds, I don't know what it sounds like, but it's like the race doesn't really start till there's 2 people left. And so it's like, I don't want to put in the early laps. And then you're kind of wishing people go out. Like, I love everyone running, but you're kind of like, okay, I'm here to try and compete. So like, I want you to do your best, but I kind of just want to get down to the racing part, right? So, like, when you go to win or compete, it's a much different feeling of the race. It's a much for your crew, for everybody. It's still fun. There's still camaraderie. You're still pushing, but there's a different tone to it, right?
Yeah. All last man standings, I don't care what kind it is, none of them truly start until you're 24 hours in.
Yeah.
That's when you know who you're actually competing with.
Yes.
Because at 24 hours, most people, even if it's in like a true backyard fashion, after 24 hours, they start dropping because their goal was just to get to 100 miles. And, like after 24 hours, you hit that 25th hour, you can look around and be like, all right, so this is this is who I'm competing. Like the race just started. Yeah. And now I got the next 24 hours to figure out who's my competition here, like that's unfortunate. Like, cause that first day, you're exactly right. Anytime I do any last man standing, my very first thought is I just got to get past these first 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And from there I can see who's my competition,
right?
You
as opposed to enjoying like, I'm only going to be here for maybe 12 hours. I'm going to like do my best and like I get it. It's different. So like, that's when you said next year, my kids come out to Mid-State. It's a lot on my family. Mm-hmm. The trainings, it's a lot. So I don't know. We're to be determined about next year about racing, but for sure we'll be there, and like I would love to crew. Like I think that'd be so fun.
Well, you all inspired me. I'm coming back next year. I've already told Becca and John I'm running. So
finally,
coming back.
Finally.
All right. There you go. I'm excited. I'll be there. I will be there. I don't know if I'll be running, but I will be there.
My daughter is probably sitting in the corner crying right now because, like,
yeah.
She did good at Mid-State this year.
She did.
She didn't do bad at all. There was no, but you got a 15, 16-year-old sitting out there for 24 hours. It's like,
and was that hot? Yeah. Oh yeah. She was.
You say what Brittany told me. She goes, after this one, she goes, I was hoping you were going to do really well this year, so you wouldn't have to come back next year.
Yeah, that's what my wife, when I went into it, she's like, you better win because I don't want to go back and do it again. I'm like, what do you think I want to do?
It's what I'm like. She told me, I'm like, well, thanks.
hey,
I'll
Darren,
let you down.
here's how bad this crew was. Like, here's how bad off they were. We start the very first lap, or they do. I'm sorry. And I've got like 2 different cameras here, and I should have just gave it to you. Me and you should have done this. Next year, if I run or you run, if I'm running, I'm taking the camera with me, but I had the 360 camera. And what I wanted to do was like every 3 or 4 hours, have them just run one loop with the 360 camera. And I was going to make like a timeline of the people dropping off. I thought it'd be really cool.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
They're in the very first lap with it. And then everybody was too tired to carry the camera for the next 12 hours. Like anytime, like I just put
Nobody else
my box and I
carried it.
I said, this is the shortest documentary ever.
Well, carried it. I never saw the camera after you asked that first lap. I never saw it again.
No, I asked you. You said, I can't. Matt just looked at me and said, I can't.
And there I go. I remember telling you that at one point, but I don't remember who else carried it.
I'm like, Dusty did the first lap with it. No one else even touched
That's
the camera.
amazing.
I was like, this
I love
Mary
that.
wouldn't carry it. Mary could have got in. She could have been back in 13 minutes.
Yeah, she did great.
Well, Darren, we're gonna start some questions here in a minute.
See if I can find
Get you out of here. That way, I know you got some other stuff you got to
Yeah,
take care of today.
I'm so good. We can go a little bit longer. I'm having a blast. If you want to go a little bit longer, whatever for you guys, man.
Well, don't worry. I got a couple more questions.
All kinds of
Tell us what happened on the last lap.
On the last lap.
Oh, yeah, we got to get into that.
I mean, you look strong all day.
Okay.
So
all back-
what took you out? What took you out?
So-
finally?
I'll have to back up a little bit on that. So at 3 a.m., I was coming down. I forget what the name of the first hill. I was coming down the first hill.
I can't
And
remember those names.
Not Machete.
I know.
Is it?
No, Machete's the same.
No, yeah, I can never remember. I know it's Myers. I finally learned that it's Myers is the first hill this year.
They got so many signs out there now.
I know.
You think as many times we did that dang
Yeah,
loop,
I know.
you remember these things.
Yeah.
I cannot remember them.
Yeah. So I was coming
That'd be
down the
heavy.
first hill, and I landed funny on a rock, and I felt my shin. Like I talked about trying to build the strength in my shins. I felt my tibia. I knew exactly what it was, and I felt a little fracture. I was like, dang it. And so I made it in. Whenever I roll my ankle running or like whenever I injure myself, I always try and maintain my form and I just try and test it. I'm like, okay, if I can, like it really gives me a good idea of how bad it is. So I ran in, it was fine. I didn't say anything to my crew, and I was like, okay, because I believe in the power of words, and I'm like, as soon as you start to speak this, then it's game over. So I was like, as long as this doesn't get worse, I can handle this. So I just kept running and I kept my form, and it was, I was there to try to win, right? So I was like, I can't show weakness. I can't show that I'm injured or it's game over. So I think about, I don't know, maybe it was 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. I told my wife, I was like, I did something to my shin and it hurts. And that's all I said. I was like, can we get some BioFreeze and we'll just rub some BioFreeze on and just do whatever we can, right? And I kept going, and it hurt. It just hurt, but it was bearable. It was manageable. The climbs were fine. Ascending, fine. Didn't matter. The flats and the downhills, it is where it bothered me. So it was getting to be the afternoon of day 2, and I thought it was later than it was. And I was waiting for that break, and I had lost track of time. And I asked my wife what time it was, and she was like, it was noon or 1 o'clock or something. Time doesn't really exist in a real form out there, right? So so I said to her, I'm like, I got 1 lap left in me. I was like, that's all. So me and Aaron were running together for a long time, like for hours and hours. We kind of had the same pace. And then he started, I usually was leading the way, and kind of with him, I was in front most of the time, and then I knew my form was going to start to break. I wasn't going to be able to maintain it. So it's the forever tactical component of it, right? So then he started descending ahead of me, and then I started like limp, like just letting it do its thing a little bit more. And I was having a little bit of trouble keeping up for like a lap or two. And I said to my wife, I'm like, if I do another lap like that, it's probably my last. Like I just mentally, it was just wearing on me. She's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna bear it, and I'm just gonna rip. I was sad. That might have been the lowest point. I was like, I'm just gonna rip. I'm like, I got 3 good laps left. I can do 3 with good form. I don't feel like I'm doing any more damage. It's starting to feel worse, but I think I'm okay. So I just ripped, and I was like, I don't want him to see me. So I took off, and I hit the bottom of Myers, and I friggin' climbed. And so I was out of his view by the time pretty close to when he got to the bottom of Myers, and I gave her. And I was like, if I can see his time increasing, I'll know I'm getting in his head a bit, and we'll play it by ear. I'll rip 3. And so I did, and I felt good. It actually made me feel a lot better. My leg hurt more, but I mentally I felt way better. And so it's like we did finish 3. He was coming in 17:30 like clockwork. He's a veteran out there, like he knows what he's doing. And so I was like, I got one more. I'll do one more. I did another one. Same thing, came in at 7, and I was looking over, and he looked like we all go through the ups and downs, right? And I looked over, and he wasn't eating as great. Like he looked it, and I was like, ah, dang. And I was like, I don't know. And my leg was, so it's just this constant like dialogue. And it just got to the point where I was like, it's getting a lot worse, and I'm feeling it way, way more. I stopped taking Tylenol and ibuprofen. I took a little bit, and I wanted to be able to feel it, because I didn't want to do anything that was going to take me out for a long time. Right. And yeah, and so it came to the point where we got to the top of Myers, and I was like, so I told him, I was like, I'm injured. You've ran a great race, and I'm like so happy. I love Aaron, so happy for him. Like love him like a brother. Wanted to win, totally, right? Like yeah, no doubt about it, right? And I was like, man, I'm injured. It's yours. Like what race ball run? You did not fall for my trap, right? And and so that was it. So that was that. I went out that last lap. It's that, like, I could have finished that lap in time. I couldn't keep going. I just knew I couldn't, and I knew I had lost the ability to segment it. So when there was more time left than I thought, and knowing how strong Aaron is, and knowing that I could have to go for 12, I just couldn't put out of my head that, like, we're only at hour like 30. And we're going to go at least to 42. Like, we're both going to be trying to get that course record. And I'm like, I just couldn't segment it smaller than 12 hours. In my head, it was just kept on being 12 hours of my leg. And so I couldn't, so it got in my head. I kept going. I was like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And so that's kind of the story of how it ended. Because a lot of people are like, you looked really good. I'm like, I was doing my very best to look as good as I could. And like, it's total, like, I smiled for every camera. Like, you know where the cameras are. I picked up my form and smiled for every camera, so that people, if anyone was watching, right? Like, if you're trying to win, then go there to win, right? So I did everything I could to do the best I could to make everyone think that I was going to keep going forever. And I was definitely not.
You know, and the other piece of that too, though, is like the fatigue just from not getting to sleep more than that 20 minutes eventually wears on you. And the things that fall, that, you know, that twinge that you felt in your shin.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're that tired, unfortunately, that stuff is what starts setting in your head too, and starts kind of spiraling out of control when you get fatigued. And, you know, that's the stuff that's really hard to battle sometimes. And if it really is a true injury, then it weighs on you even more because you're so tired. But I think you did a good job of managing it and trying to play a little poker face there and,
Still my best.
you know, test the limits. Because, I mean,
Well-
you know, some people wouldn't have done that. They might have just stopped and been like, you know, I'm done. But you tried to run several more laps.
Yeah, and every other year, actually, last year, I slept I slept so hard. I told people I slept, but I didn't sleep at all. I didn't sleep at all. So
This year,
none, no, didn't get any sleep. So like last year, I fell asleep immediately. I tossed and turned, and I couldn't figure the sleep bit out. So yeah,
well, I mean, if you get 18 to 20 minutes of sleep in a last man standing, it's like sleeping a day. You know,
Yeah.
like it's just amazing what it does for you mentally.
Yeah.
So that was definitely another challenge for you. Darren, before we get into the start of the big questions with Matt, I have one more, and this is the same question we ask everybody on this podcast, and that's, why do you run? When things are so hard and things are going wrong and nothing is working right for you, and you're in the middle of this grind, why do you do it? What keeps you going?
So I think our lives are really easy. I think in general, I know, like I come from a world where mental health is like a lot of my friends and former coworkers, like mental health is a thing. So I'm not discounting how hard life is for some people at sometimes. I think maybe a better way to say this, we have the conveniences, and maybe life is so people struggle with mental health because everything should be fine, because we have everything we really need. If we are living in North America, you know, most people have food in the fridge and a roof over their heads. And so I run to experience discomfort. That's to build a body mind connection and to experience some discomfort, because I don't get it day to day. And I think there is so much value in going to places and where your brain and just having to figure out what's important to you, why things matter. And it allows me that ability to do that. And so that would be the biggest thing. And then it's just, running is such a good habit to build consistency to be healthy. Like, it's just what, and I walk a lot of my runs when I'm training, you know, hill repeats and stuff. Like, I walk a lot, so it's not like this running thing. You know, people. I mean, your listeners are very aware, but like people who don't know, like, running is not marathon training where you're throwing down 6-minute splits to, like, no, that's a different thing. That's training to do a thing. Running is walking and is jogging and is getting outside and is being out early and all that stuff. So it's really good for my physical and my mental health. And so those are kind of the two reasons that I would give to that answer, that question.
Oh, great answer. Very true too. I mean, our lives are, for the most part, pretty easy. You know, like, as far as, like, there's not a lot of hard stuff. I mean, there is stress from work and stuff like that.
Right.
But that's not the same kind of hard. That's not the hard of where you're out here in the middle of everything going wrong, trying to figure out how to survive, just how to hold on for another hour, for another loop, for another second. And that truly is learning about yourself and your ability and finding out who you are and what you're capable of, and also learning and adapting to being able to change and find ways to get better, because you may fail, but damn it, you're going to find a way not to fail the next time on that same thing. And that is so impactful to life. And it makes all the stress at work and everything else a little less, because you realize what true stress and, you know, fatigue and pain and suffering really is.
Agreed.
I love that.
That's well said, man.
All right, I got a few questions here.
I just want to say, I am so happy that he actually found the list and has it ready, and
I've read it.
he didn't like blast music in this podcast. Or,
Brian hasn't tagged us in anything.
it's usually just something, Darren.
Hey, these Brian, he does it on purpose now. He'll tag us in a story, and I'll share the story. That's where he gets me. I'll share it through the East Coast Adventures page. And then when I go through to try to find the questions, it just lights it up. So now he does it on purpose. But he didn't do it. He didn't do it this time.
Yes. All right, Darren, I'm just going to warn you. We have no idea what these questions are,
All
so
right.
just be ready.
These were pretty good. These were
Are they not too bad?
no, these were you know, a few
They get a little personal.
of the I don't know, the people who's got a big following, they ask some really deep questions. They're like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. But here's this. What makes Mid-State Mile special to you?
That's a great question. The fact that I don't mind being bored. I don't mind repeats and loops. And the fact that I haven't run many out and backs. I haven't run any point to points. But the ones that the like running Georgia Jewel is like my family comes, like I'm a big family man, and my family comes and it's like, okay, see ya in 6 hours. And then they go off and do stuff and you don't get to really see your crew a lot and they sacrifice a lot, and then you don't really get to see other runners a lot besides a couple that you run with generally for certain sections of it. So Mid-State and the format is so special because you just get to see the human spirit. You get to see people conquer fears, and like it's emotional for a reason. Like a lot of people come across that line emotional because they are pushing, because you can quit on a trail at an aid station and people are just, they kind of let you go, but there people are like, you can do another mile. Like people can push themselves to extreme limits there. And then just the fact of, who John and Beck are and how hard the course is, like those are all the things that combine to make that a really, really special, fun, unique race.
That is true. What made you choose Tennessee to settle down in?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we left Canada, we toured a bunch of states just as tourists with the idea of like, if we were to land here, and we made a lot of friends in Tennessee really fast. Southern hospitality, and we made a ton of friends here really quickly, and we didn't do that anywhere else. So we also, kind of the business that we're in has to do with some real estate stuff, so it was good opportunities in those seasons to do that. So that's a pretty quick answer. Yeah
No, that's awesome.
And
people
we ran through Columbia for Ball State, right?
Yes.
I don't know where we with it.
I don't know if you guys did, but lots of people ran through Columbia on their way to like Lewisburg.
Yeah, there it is. There's Columbia. Yeah, because we actually ran by that really nice courthouse they got, that huge one.
Yeah.
We ran right by that thing, and cool. I wish I knew, like, those courthouses were pretty cool.
I'll be honest with you. I mean, there was days where I was just worried about finding balls.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
all that. So
that's crazy.
They were pretty cool, but it was hard for me to like enjoy how nice they were.
That's a wild adventure.
Pretty sure I ate a party.
I recommend you do it one day.
It's on my list.
It is absolutely life changing.
All right.
I think Columbia.
I think it really is. Like it will. It is a life changing race in the way that you appreciate so much more when you finish the things that you've always taken for granted that you don't realize.
Well, like especially like
you make me want to run it.
I'm serious, man. I never would have thought, like, there was so many low spots in this race. It was so hard, and shit did not go anywhere like what I planned.
Nope.
Like that's the thing. But at the end of the day, it will truly humble you into the fact that the only thing that matters day 2, day 3, when you're getting into this race is like, where am I going to get my next meal? Where am I going to get my next drink? And like just focusing on that stuff. And dude, I'm telling you, it will change your entire perspective. When you finish this race, you're just like, I'm sitting there on the front of a parking lot at Hardee's with my shoes off, eating a biscuit, people looking at me like I'm homeless. And I just turn around and look at the guy running with me. And I'm like, this race really lowers your expectations. Like, and when you finish the race, you just truly can't explain, how hard some of this stuff was and things you went through. And it's different than running a 100-mile race. When you run something miles on an open road in the middle of the highway, or, highways, open sunshine, and you have no aid. Like, that's a whole different ballgame, man. Like, you're navigating this thing yourself, so it's up to you. Wow, and I'm telling you, like, if you ever get a chance to do it, do it.
Yeah, it's on the list. It's literally written down on my races that I would like to do, so it's on there.
But I think it's a great one. I don't know if I would ever do. I would start with that one before I've done HOTS or anything else. At least Ball State, you get, the route, the plan, and you can, that's hard enough as it is for your very first one. So Ball State's like perfect. Those other two that Laz has, which is HOTS and their third circle of hell. They're kind of wild cards. It's a little bit different, but Ball State, man, I recommend you try it at some point. It will truly change your entire life and perspective on things.
All right, got a few more questions here. Let's see. How much do you use sauna and cold plunge? Because I know from following you and us talking a lot, you're into those two things a lot.
Well, not cold plunging anymore.
He was for a while. I don't actually. I'm building a sauna right now, so I would cold plunge every day if it was more convenient. I right now it's not a huge part of my routine, and I would sauna I would every day in an infrared or something. Like, it's the convenience factor, right? So we're building a wood fired sauna that it's actually going to be we're planning on bringing it to the Tennessee Mile. Nice. And have some sauna and bring an ice bath and have some recovery stuff there for the athletes. But I would 3 to 5 days a week would be what I would shoot for if I could. I believe in the benefits of it. It's one of those things where it's cost prohibitive and it can be very time consuming. So,
did you go to Canada and do like a ice thing, like session and stuff?
So with a bunch of it started with first responders because I believe it's very good mentally and physically. It's the same thing. It's doing challenging things. People who've never gotten in cold water before, like go in cold water and see your response and see what happens. And then people who go in and they do it for 10 seconds, and then we go in the sauna and everyone gets warm and toasty and it's like, I'm hot. And then they go in and they do a minute, and then they go back in and they do 3 minutes, and it's like, oh, I can do more than I like. Kind of like going to mid-state a second year, like, oh, I can do way more than I thought I could, right? And it's just it's kind of flipping switches. So we every year we put on some cold sauna. We do some I do some functional breathwork stuff, so like some apnea stuff, and we have fun with that. It's nothing crazy, but it's the same thing as the ultra community. It's more just bringing people together, doing some hard stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Build a community. Yeah.
And I totally get the convenience factor of the cold plunge. If I didn't have the setup I have, there's no way I would cold plunge. I couldn't deal with the ice and the dumping, so I put a water chiller and a water filtration system and everything on mine. And I don't do it every day though. Even with that, I only do it like 2 days a week. Really after really, really big long runs, I don't do it every day, but it definitely makes a difference. If you're having to dump that thing out every couple of days, you might fill it up. That's a lot of work. Like, I get it.
Yeah, and there's seasons where it makes sense to do it, and there's in your training and whatever else where you have the time and you have the desire, and there's seasons where you don't. It's like running. It's cyclical, right? Like it's like that's what Eric said to me when we talked about this year on the mile. Spend some Eric Kinley some hours. He's like it's not linear. Like the pain cave, it's not linear. It's not going to keep getting worse. You're going to go around a bunch of times, right? And just it's the same thing with training. It's the same thing with all of it. Do not get discouraged when it's not always up and to the right and everything's getting better or you're increasing. Like, just follow it through, follow around, and goes back around.
Well said. There are good years and there are bad years.
100%.
Like, I mean, I've had last year was just a bad year for me, and this year starting off much better, but that bad year doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. It's up to you to make those changes, to figure out what you need to do. Well said.
Thank you.
Let's see. The next one. These are 3 basic questions that we usually have. What type of nutrition do you prefer?
I figured out a lot about nutrition. I don't like sweet. I love sweet stuff. It gives me GI issues. So this year I did peanut butter banana wraps, probably only 3 or 4 of them. I thought I did about 80 of them. My wife's like, I gave you like 4. I was like, okay, well, I guess I don't like that as much as I thought. I did a lot of salted avocado. So I do like a quarter to half of the salted avocado.
I love avocado.
Yeah. A lot of rice, a lot of potatoes, ate a lot of applesauce. That was most of it. Some scratch and tailwinds, right? But I keep it now pretty bland, and that seems to do. Oh, I ate quite a bit of fruit too. A lot of watermelon, a lot of pineapple, a little bit of yogurt. But yeah, no, the dairy doesn't sit well with me. The sugar doesn't sit well with me. So I keep it pretty bland to the carbs and do my best with that. I had a couple. First Form was there, so tried a couple of their protein bars, liked a couple of them. And so yeah, my nutrition was just 120 to 150 calories an hour. I ate every lap.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife forced me to. That was the thing. When you stop eating, it's game over, right? So
Right. You don't stand a chance at that point.
no. So
well, I didn't see you throw up, so you did something.
I was
wrong.
fine. Yeah, I was fine.
Yeah, I mean, you both didn't throw up this race.
I know. Matt deserves an award.
They were betting on
This
me
is
throwing
the
up.
first race I've ever been to with him where he did not throw up, and I was so discouraged. Like I was
it was
waiting.
so hot too.
I was like ready to get pictures because no one has got to really see him smack himself like I have, and you probably have at Mid-State last year.
Justin Ford did.
I was so disappointed that I didn't get to see that. Like
Justin Ford saw me throw up last year coming down that last hill, throwing up watermelon. I slapped the piss out of myself, and he just looks at me and he goes, "Yeah, man, we're all going through that right now." And that's the only time I threw up. But yeah, he was right there. The last question I got is, what kind of shoes do you prefer?
I've tried. I tested out a lot of shoes. I wear Lone Peaks, and that's just what works. So
a lot of people
I tried some Topos. I've just been in zero drop for so long that it had that little bit of heel elevation that just on the descents and training, it bothered my foot. So yeah, I was dealing with plantar fasciitis, so I was like, I don't want to mess too much with new shoes. And so I like Lone Peaks. I do know that Topos has, what is it called? The Ascent or something. They have a brand new zero drop trail shoe out. So I will give that a shot. But yeah, I've been running in Lone Peaks for 4 years. I've never really run in another shoe.
That's right.
What do you have in ultras?
Do what?
Never ran in them.
You never ran in ultras?
I got one pair and then I
Matt talked about you got to find me a discount code for some Speedlands because
I'll try to find you one.
I can't afford them, but I would love to try.
I can't either. That's the only way I bought them was find the discount. I'll see if I can find you one.
I'll hunt too. I'll message you if I see something.
Hey, if you Google enough and you put enough in, eventually one of them is going to work.
One day. Yeah, you got that right.
Well, Darren, do you have any questions for us?
I do not. I'm grateful. I had a blast, man. This was super fun. I appreciate you guys making the time and inviting me to be here.
No, dude, we appreciate you. Oh, yeah, I mean, thank you so much for jumping on, last minute. And more importantly, thank you so much for being on here and sharing your story and taking the time to be with us because, like, we truly admire and appreciate what you did out there. Mm-hmm. And, you've came a long way in 3 years. If you just look at this whole progression of, whether it's, you talk about Last Man Standing or ultras, but you've made such a huge change in your life for the better. And I'm sure for your family. I'm sure that, this new path that you found and you're going down is probably going to impact even your children to help them to be more healthy, man. And at the end of the day, that's truly what it's all about. We're just all trying to be a little bit better every day. And if you can do that, you're going to help your kids, you're going to help your spouse, and you're going to help your entire family be better because they're going to see you trying to be better. And we see that with you. And what's funny is like me and you have been friends on Instagram, and I've never had the first conversation with you. But we just knew each other through other runners, and I'm glad that I finally got to talk to you and see you at Mid-State. But I mean, I didn't even know we ran Georgia Jewel together last year. Like, I have no idea. But I've followed you enough on Instagram to know your story, and I think it's awesome. And I just want to tell you, keep doing what you're doing. You're going to inspire more people, and you're only going to get better. So keep it up, man. Truly just appreciative of your time and what you're doing.
Appreciate those kind words. Thank you.
You're welcome. Darren, take care, brother. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for the
Darren.
podcast.
Thank you very much, boys.